Hello there, I'm Farah DJ and welcome to the 5th episode of the Church of Deep House podcast. How are you all doing and how have you enjoyed our podcast episodes so far? In this episode we'll be interviewing Spain-based JF Alexsander, who has worked with music for many years, whether it be as a DJ, producer or the label owner of Survivor Records and Zona3. Describing himself as a continuous music creator, JF Alexsander, or Jose, plays and produces music along the deeper side of the electronic music spectrum, to include deep house, progressive house and techno. Today we'll be talking to Jose about his passion for and inspiration around playing and producing deep house music. We'll also discuss his perspective around the evolution of deep house and the associated scene. Hello there, Jose, and thank you very much for choosing to do an interview with the Church of Deep House podcast. So you describe yourself as a continuous music creator. Can you tell us how long you've been playing and creating music for and why or what the reason is for wanting to create music?
I have been making music for more than 25 years, and music has always been part of my life. For me, music is pure state of mind. I try to show in my music what I feel when I listen and create my own music, share it and see if someone feels the same as me. I try to create atmospheres. My music above all is to be heard through headphones anywhere, not only for DJs. For me, what I do with music is my way of life. Many years continuously with music is my entertainment, my hobby, my way of life.
Wow, that's very transparent of you, Jose, and interesting with regards to the fact that you use music to, show your inner world, or more specifically and accurately what it is that you're feeling, as well as the fact that, when you do share your music, you're doing so in the hopes to see if there's someone else out there that feels the same as you. So I'm sure that you're not alone with that sentiment, and I know that I can most definitely relate to that in terms of, when I first encountered house music many, many years ago, whilst listening to pirate radio stations, the kind of enduring memory of that encounter is one of an experience of a sense of expansion and awe, as well as feeling as though, the music was able to express my feelings in ways words couldn't necessarily. And so I went on to create mixtapes, so R&B mixtapes for my then boyfriend, and I was doing so in order to, share what it was that I was feeling, as well as kind of express my desires, actually. And now that you say it, I was also asking a question to see whether he felt the same as me and, whether he was able to relate to me in that space. So there's something there about human connection, which is such a fundamental human need. I think it's a need for all beings. But, the fact that for us as humans that we use music through which to, create connection, connect to others and have people connect to us effectively. And I know that when I play music that I am doing so to connect with people, and that my early experiences of house music very much influences the sound that I've chosen to play, so deep house music, the experience that I want to create for people who are listening to me play. So with that said, who and or what influences your sound and why?
For me, and at certain times, artists and record labels that have inspired me and still inspire me are, for example, DeepWit Recordings, Ivan Garci, Helly Larson, Adex, Rizzi Komoto, Camilo San Clemente, Paul Grapp's Techno Sound, Oscar Mulero, all of them. Their sound style tracks have the music that I like to listen to and that have shaped me.
So I'm definitely familiar with some of the artists or producers and record labels that you've mentioned there. So I learned how to DJ just over 2 years ago now and, play deep house, but there was this specific deep house sound that I desired to play. I just didn't know who produced it or how to go about finding it. But then over time, I encountered a couple of DJs who played that sound. And, it was music from the likes of Helly, Larson and Adex. And then latterly, initially, I as I did my research, came across DeepWit recordings and Ivan Garci, as well as, Delano Smith, Fortiba, DMP, MKJ, SA, just to name a few. And, for me, they are responsible for, producing music that I call pure deep house music, which, has enduring features or characteristics about it, to include the fact that the music creates certain experiences with, with its listeners. It takes people deep within themselves, which is probably why it's called deep house music. But, I love it. And, it's just something that I'm deeply attracted to. So, I guess for you as a DJ and musical creator, what attracted and keeps you attracted to the deep house sound, and how would you describe pure deep house music?
For me, in terms of deep house or deep dub, I really like the atmospheric sound, dub sometimes, melodic basses, chords, melodies that features these styles, and at a more relaxed speed, which in my day-to-day I keep listening to because it transports me. Deep music, atmospheric music, makes me dream, fly, imagine, relax.
Yeah, there are some enduring characteristics and features of deep house music to include, that atmospheric sound or cosmic sound that can make it feel as though, you're expanding or flying. And then there are, sounds that makes it feel as though you're kind of deep diving to the bottom of the ocean. And I would attribute that to kind of the more dubbier sounds of deep house music. But, this is a topic that we broach in episode 1, actually, where we talk about the dichotomies of deep house music. So, the fact that on one hand, it can feel as though, you're expanding because of, that atmospheric sound. But then on the other hand, it can take you deeper into yourself, where, as I said, you're deep diving to the bottom of the ocean with regards to kind of the more dubbier sound. And then there are, sounds that are very earthy and very, very gritty. But, it's these dichotomies that deep house presents that enables, I guess, the listener to experience different aspects of their being or different types of feelings that makes it really, really attractive to me. But I know that you don't just produce deep house music, and that you actually also produce, progressive house and techno music, and that your record label, Survivor Records and Zona3, produces music across the EDM spectrum. So as a result of that, how would you say your experience of these sounds contrasts with your experience of deep house music?
I need to change the style from time to time. So many years with music means ear fatigue. It is good to change from time to time. Sometimes slower and sometimes stronger. From deep to techno, or that great progressive house that for me is impressive, where there are works of musical art.
Works of musical art. I like that term. I think I'm going to borrow that, actually, if that's all right with you. So what genre did you play and produce first? And following on from that, what influenced your evolution in sound?
My first tracks were very minimal, techno, experimentation, atmospheres, until I discovered and worked on deep hub, more techno, and lately progressive house tracks. Although in my experience with music in all these years, I also have in some cases other tracks like trance, tech house, etc.
So your sound definitely spans the EDM spectrum. And as we said earlier, this is true for your record labels. I've seen that, it also includes, your record labels also includes Afro House. But if we return to Deep House for this question, my next question to you is that you probably have several Deep House tracks that you would call your favorite. And I could very well be projecting here because I have several favorites. But, what I mean by that are those tracks that you would return to over and over, thus making them personal classics. So can you tell us about one of them? So tell us, the name, the producer, why it's a classic for you, to include, what it makes you think and feel, etc.
Well, I don't usually memorize titles. I have really enjoyed and still enjoy many tracks from today and just today. I don't focus on one or two. There are so many great tracks. Insomnia, Ivan Garci, Adex, many of the tracks from DeepWit recordings, Batavia Records, Seven, Sound Vessel Records, Helly, Larson, Alvaro Highlander.
Do you know, you're right. It is not easy to narrow tracks down to one favourite, which is why I have multiple favourites, because there is so much great music out there, or works of musical art, as you put it. See what I did there? But can we now just talk about one of your own favourite deep house tracks that you've produced? And can you tell us what inspired the creation and why it's a favourite for you?
Well, after almost 400 tracks, there are some better and others not that much. Tracks sound more worked and others more fast. Despite the setbacks along the way, have been doing it continuously, very transparent. Among my tracks which stand out in general are those published in DeepWit recordings, Batavia Records, Sound Vessel Records, Deep Clicks. All or almost all of them show something of me. My time, my dream with music. I would like to reach more people, make them feel what I feel, share sensations, my life, my good intentions, dreams.
Well, you reached me with a BDTom and Domestic Science remix version of your Reforce track, actually, which I know is on DeepWit recordings. And I discovered it at a time where I was feeling the need to play pure deep house more and more. So when I heard it, I immediately felt and thought, okay, so this is pure deep house. And this is because of its expansive soundscape and dub-like undertones. And so I purchased it and subsequently became intrigued by your sound, and so went on to purchase other tracks like the uplifting, playful sounding Look Well, which features on episode 3 of the Church of Deep House podcast, as well as Family with its erotically bouncy groove, both of which are on Survivor Records. So I have a number of your other tracks which are on some of the record labels that you've mentioned already. But there's one, well, there are a few that have really hooked me, but there's one that I would like us to focus our attention on, which is Success, which is also on the Survivor Records label. So it's deep house, but wow, the tune has this thing that drew me in effectively. So it sounds really mystical, and this mystical sound is accompanied by this kind of drawn out hypnotic call, which is a feature or characteristic that I love in certain tracks. And, if I liken that call to anything, it's very much like, the flute that's used to charm snakes. And I will say that, the tune charmed me, and I was definitely drawn in. So there is a lot more that I could say about the track, but what I would love to know is what inspired its creation. So what did you want to communicate to the listener, given the fact that you use music to show, a part of yourself to, the listener, as well as to share your feelings to us? So what essentially did you want us to experience?
Well, as I said, it is a part of me that I try to share with the listeners. That magic that I feel when I do it. The sensation and dreams you can reach with atmospheric music, the moments of climax, relaxation, as if you were transported to another time and place, etc., are sometimes difficult to express. Music is something personal and at the same time limited that we share.
So I guess with regards to things being difficult to express sometimes, as you say, this brings us to the original point, or the initial point that was made around music and its ability to express our feelings, and where I said, music can do so in ways words can't necessarily. I guess sometimes there are things that just can't be reinterpreted back into words. I know that when I listen to Success, there's just something really deep and hypnotic about it, and I feel that I get lost in it, particularly because of that hypnotic call that I mentioned, and I've included it actually in a mini mix which will follow this interview, but as a tune, it's something that I enjoy listening to and grooving to, and I really am looking forward to playing it and getting a reaction from the listener and or dancer in response to it. But that brings us quite nicely to the next question, actually, with regards to the deep house scene in Spain. So in London, I would say that the deep house scene, or at least the deep house scene that plays like that pure deep house sound, is relatively underground. But how would you describe the scene in Spain, and how has your participation in it evolved? Also, in your opinion, how has deep house music evolved in relation to this?
Well, as far as the Spanish scene is concerned, I haven't received an answer because I do almost everything for my studio at home. Music is like my family. It's like a part of me. Yes, everything evolves and changes, but many keep their essence as long as it lasts.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Although I do know that you said that your music isn't just for DJs, but is also for general listening as well. So, okay. But yeah, with regards to what you were saying around everything evolving and changing, I guess that's not just true of music and the music scene, but also for life in general. And in terms of what you're saying around things keeping their essence for, as long as they last, that can most definitely said for music or music scenes, irrespective of the genre. And that, for me, there is something specific to deep house, whether you want to call it characteristic or a feature or its essence, that has it so that, when one listens to it, when I listen to it, I can definitively say, yes, that's deep house. And that's because of the way it makes me feel or the impact it has on me. And this is the reason why, this podcast exists. The Church of Deep House really is about tapping into that essence of pure deep house. But returning to kind of the topic of scene, I know that you've created your own scene by way of a radio station called Creation X, and this features on Mixcloud. Can you tell us more about it to include your reason for creating it?
Well, in my life I have always liked the radio, and I have grown up with it. I also had experience with a local radio, and through internet they gave me the possibility to make a small radio program, Creación X, from Radio X Web, whose owner is a great person. And there we are doing some programs where I show the electronic music that I like, share news from Beatport, songs from my record labels Survivor Records and Zona3. It is a small radio show program to share music, musical moments, company, promotion.
Yes, radio shows and stations can act as really great platforms through which you can share your sound, your music, and connect with others, as well as promote yourself, whether it be as a DJ or a producer. So that brings us to our final question, actually, Jose, and that is as to whether there are any other musical projects that you'd like us to look out for.
Well, I've made a lot of music, as I told you. On Spotify or Beatport, you can listen to my tracks and select at your pleasure. I will keep doing it as long as I can and keep enjoying music.
And I guess we'll continue to keep enjoying your sound. So thank you very much for your time and your energy and for agreeing to be the first interviewee for the Church of Deep House. So really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your interest in me.
So again, a big massive thank you to Jose for his time and energy today. We hope you enjoyed this interview with him, and if you'd like to hear more music from him or his labels, whether you love your deep house, progressive house, techno and more, you can find his music on Beatport, Traxsource, Spotify and Bandcamp. Just search for JF Alexsander, all one word, where Alexander is spelled Alexsander. See, it's all about the S. You can also search for him under his label names, Survivor Records and Zona3. You can also tune into his radio show Creation X on Mixcloud, where he plays across the electronic music spectrum. Just search for Creation X, spelled CreationX. So up next is a short mix including his hypnotic track Success, which we hope you'll enjoy. And in the spirit of the interview, do share what feelings the mix, and in particular the tune Success, evokes in you. And as ever, if you love or feel connected to what you've heard, and to ensure you're notified of future episodes and upcoming guest mixes, as well as live showcases which have been scheduled to take place over the next few weeks, remember to follow and or subscribe to the Church of Deep House on Instagram, Facebook, Mixcloud, Apple Podcasts, YouTube and TuneIn. So with that said, enjoy the mix. Thank you for listening, and until the next time, take care. The Church of Deep House is now in session.
As I close my eyes, I envision another world. A world that seems more real and rigid. I feel I belong here. But I always fall back into this existence, feeling trapped. Feeling trapped. As I close my eyes, I envision another world, a world that seems more real and rigid. I feel I belong here, but I always fall back into this existence, feeling trapped.